Have you ever wondered what it's like to be the best in the world at something? Our next guest can tell you. He was the top water slide designer in the world, but learned that the top of the mountain isn't everything we think it is. Welcome to Second Story. Today we dive into the journey of Jonathan Brazeau, the host of EarthLabs expeditions. Braz's career began earnestly in small-town Canada before it took a wild turn into the thrilling world of water park design. Braz eventually left the business to get into the rugged, high-stakes world of mining. He didn't just stick to a script. He left his lucrative career, embraced adventure, and brought tens of thousands along for the ride through his YouTube channel, where he explores the science, stories, and raw reality of mining. Today we'll hear Braz's story, from the design dreams that brought him success in water parks to the calling that led him underground and around the globe. This is Braz's Second Story. Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Josh Cybulski. With me, as most of the time, Corey Leckie. What's up, Corey?
Hey, man, what's going on?
You know, I actually had a thought this morning that I was going to put a suit on for this. I was like,
Really?
man, I'm going to start looking. Yeah, for real. I'm going to start looking like a professional when we do this show. And then I got upstairs and I was like, well, I won't wear the pants, but I'll wear the top. And I was like, well, I won't wear the jacket, but I'll wear a shirt and tie. And then I was like, well, I'll just wear a shirt. And like, if I'm going to wear a shirt, I'll just wear a hoodie. So here I am.
Are you wearing pants though?
Yeah.
Okay.
I also, I'm kind of losing my voice. So I didn't want to do like the whole Jordan Peterson thing because I am probably going to fall into Kermit the Frog at some point during this episode. Anyways, with us this week, we've got a very, very old friend of mine. He's not old, but we've been friends for a long time. He is, come see, come saw. So we grew up together. He is a YouTuber and he's blowing up right now. Jonathan Brazeau. What's up, buddy?
Hey, not much, guys. What's up with you?
Oh, you know, we're doing a podcast.
Yeah.
YouTube.
We're all YouTube stars. Look at us go.
Yeah,
Yep.
You've been doing it significantly shorter period of time and are already doing significantly better. So congratulations on all your success.
Well, thank you. And guys, I love the show. So, if I'm the 13th person that ever watched it, you made a fan at number 13. I love it.
Nice. What's it like
Yeah.
having he's got 2 million subscribers, so we've only got one, so we don't know what it's like to be at 2. What's that like?
It's hard to go out and do groceries and, enjoy a cup of coffee with my wife without getting interrupted for pictures and autographs. But, that's the price of fame. So I'll get by.
Fair enough.
Just for everyone watching, that's total BS. That doesn't happen.
Yeah, we are. We're on the climb. We'll say we're on the rise. It's actually better to be on the climb than on the fall. So we're enjoying every minute of it. And I know you are too. We've talked about it. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun too.
Yeah. This is this is never where I, anticipated myself ending up. I could say that for sure. It's been a long journey with a lot of twists and turns, and to be here, it's what life throws at you and what you make of it. And it was time for me to, make a change in my life, and now I'm on YouTube and hosting a mini documentary, man, and it's a lot of fun. Life's a lot of fun if you approach it the right way and you're willing to take the risks, and that's what I'm doing, and that's what you guys are doing, and I think it's pretty awesome to put yourself out there and learn something new, grow in a new field and master your craft, and on to the next one.
Yeah, and these are all topics that we're going to talk about today with you. So we'll start just by introing your second story to everybody. So for those who have never watched the show, we are Second Story. We talk a lot about things like personal development, making changes in your life. And we talk to a lot of guests who have had major events or series of events that have changed the direction of their life. And that's why John's here today. We're going to talk to you about the changes that occurred in your life and your second story. So floor is yours. Let's hear it.
All right. Well, I'm John. All my friends call me Braz, from a small town of Renfrew, Ontario, like Josh and our buddies. We're a cool group. We've been friends since, I can call myself cool, right?
We're cool. We're cool.
We're cool.
Bunch of cool guys.
What I mean by that is we're a really unique group of friends. We've all been friends since elementary school, and we still hang out today, and very fortunate, to have each other and have good friends, and have all grown up and become successful as a team, which is sort of unique for a small town like Renfrew. Anyways, come from Renfrew. I live in a small town now called Richmond. Um, my journey, is a really unique one. I actually had a guy on LinkedIn reach out to me the other day, one of these cold sales calls, and he wrote me and he said, I have a lot of clients with very similar, resumes and work history as you, and I'd like to talk to you about this. And I never write back to them, but I had to write back to this guy and be like, bullshit. No, you don't. So I was trained as an engineer. Went to college, mechanical engineering technologist. Worked in a foundry for 5 years, aluminum and magnesium sand cast foundry. It's called Haley, up near where we're from. Boring job, didn't really like it, but great experience. Learned a lot about mechanical systems and how things work, and how to do equipment maintenance, and get good with your hands and all that. From there, I moved into a role that I was in for 13 years with the world's #1 water slide and water ride manufacturer based here in Ottawa. And over those 13 years, traveled around the world, designed the biggest, the baddest, the best water slides, in the entire world. We're talking the Disney's, Six Flags, Wet and Wilds, Cedar Fair, all the biggest parks. We were there.
Calypso.
Not Calypso. That's actually the first question that every single person ever asked me when I told them I was working water slides. So our company actually didn't bid on that job because it was in Limoges, which is very close to Ottawa. And at the time, we were planning on opening our own water park just around the corner from where I live on Moody South. So we didn't want our stuff, competing with itself. That water park never ended up happening. And so, now we just have to answer that question forever.
Sorry.
No, it's all good. It's all good. How many water parks are there around Ottawa? Not many. So you would think. It's funny too that the other #1 water slide and water ride company in the world is also Canadian, and they're based out of Richmond, BC. Anyways, fun fact, Canada with the harshest winters of anyone in the world, and we have the 2 best water slide companies in the world. I guess that, that takes me to what I believe is my second story, but I don't have such a dramatic, life-changing event as some of the guests you've had, and I think you can't write any good story without a lot of chapters. So while this may be my second story, it may just be the most impactful chapter to this point. But after 13 years in the water slide and water ride industry, I grew from a CAD detailer, doing details of parts and making drawings, up to leading a team of product developments, the lead ride developer at the company. And I always say to people, and it's hard to say it with humility, but it's a very rare chance or opportunity that anyone ever gets to say that they're the best in the world at what they do. And, I was the top guy, proven track and record, award-winning designer at the best water ride company in the world. And so I truly believe, and still do to this day, that I am or was the best water slide designer in the world. And that's a heavy thing to be able to say. And certainly there's, some of my peers would watch it and be like, "Oh, John, he's full of it." But, the proof is in the resume and the things that I did. And which brings us to now. I already mentioned that I left that job, and now I'm making videos on YouTube. So a huge change. And for most people, I think if you ever got to that level of success in your career, you would just mail it in and say you're done. Certainly even within that company, there's a lot of people that did that. They had a lot of success. They did really great, but they stopped pushing. They said, I've made it. I made it to the top. I'm just going to chill here forever. And I read a good quote the other day that, everyone thinks you just want to get to that top of the mountain, but when you get there, you might realize that the air's a little thin and there's not a lot of people around, and it's pretty lonely and a challenging place to live. That's not to say that anyone shouldn't shoot to be at the top, but chances are there's a higher mountain somewhere else, and you got to go back down, before you can climb up the next one. And that's really what the journey's all about. For me was, I felt that I was done with that. I had achieved, in my mind, anything anyone could want to achieve. Traveled around the world, designed all these great rides, made it to the top of my craft and the quote best in the world. So it was easy to close that chapter, really. Leading up to that, I had made a bunch of other changes that put me in a place where I was ready to take the risk and say, I can leave this, I can go do something else, and I believe whatever it is, that I'll figure it out and I'll find a way to make it happen, because chasing your passion is one thing, and I was certainly passionate about rides and slides and that whole industry. But you still got to pay your mortgage, and you gotta put fuel in your truck, and you got to pay your insurance. And I think that's a risk that holds a lot of people back. And it takes some conviction to be able to leave something so comfortable and be able to, put your money where your mouth is. And is that
You
it?
shouldn't.
I feel
You
like I'm
shouldn't do
saying
that. It's
that
very,
wrong.
very dirty. It's probably also covered in drugs.
Yeah, cocaine.
Yeah, mostly cocaine. Yeah.
Mostly cocaine. And then take the leap and do it. And as we dig into the story, I'll try to relate to you guys and to everyone watching how I got to that point, and how I was able to leave that. Just probably a lot of people listening and a lot of people all around that are in a job that they don't love. Josh, you and I have talked about it before, talked about it with a lot of the guys, because they look at me and they say, I don't know how you did it. Like, I don't know how you could make that change and do something so drastic. But there's a lot of steps leading up to it that gave me the confidence to believe that, I could do it, and I wanted to. So yeah, it's really exciting. Now I'm on YouTube. One of our other good friends, Denis, he's a geologist, owns a very successful company, a mining media company. And he called me up one day, and the timing was kind of serendipitous. I was feeling like I was on the, coming to the end of my journey with ProSlide. He said, hey, I got this idea. I want to make a documentary on these mining companies and these exploration companies, to, to promote them. So they have a method to promote, leverage the platform that Denis has built through the new company, and bring something fresh to the space. A lot of the way that these companies market themselves is very cookie cutter. It's the same kind of videos that everyone makes over and over and over. And Denis wanted to make something different, something interesting, something that stood alone as maybe not a mining promotion, that was actually a show that people would be interested in. And he looked at, he sent me some examples. I remember the best ever food reviews show. I don't know if you know this guy. He wears a bandana. He travels all around the world, and he tries all the food. And the videos are super interesting. I mean, he has millions and millions of followers. Great cinematography, a lot of quick cuts, and you really get into it. Now, people like food probably more than they like mining, but he's like, I want it to be styled like this. And I was like, wow, okay, that's a tall order, like how tall you want your water slide to be, kind of thing. But we formed like a vision, right? We formed a vision, and yeah, we're knocking it out, and we're learning along the way. It's been tough. It's a whole new industry for me. But we wanted to make something that could help bring eyes to mining that wouldn't necessarily normally be in mining. And I won't go too deep into that whole sales pitch of that, but we can all appreciate how important mining and minerals are. And you look at, market cap of a company like Nvidia trades more every single day than the entire mining industry is worth. But you can't make a single GPU without all components that are mined from the earth. So we want to try and change the stigma. We want to bring it to more people. We want people to understand it's important. And, mining gets a bad rap, but there's a lot of good players, and there's a lot of good things in place in that industry. You got to dig a hole in the earth, right? It's not great, but there's no other way to get it. So the whole industry and the TSX and all the major the major exchanges, mandate certain things like environmental, indigenous relations, reclamation plans, all that stuff. And we want to get all that word out because we think the sector deserves it, and it's a cool industry to be in. And I can vouch for it. It's been awesome so far. A lot of good people, a lot of good players. So we're trying to help get the word out. If anyone's interested, it's called EarthLabs Expeditions. You can look us up on YouTube and check out what we're doing. But this is not a plug for that, so I'll leave it
We'll
there.
link it at the end. We'll let you plug it. Don't worry.
Yeah,
All right.
It'll be plugged. I have a question about kind of your transition from the one job to the other. Did you have any emotions or any fears or feelings when you were making that decision?
So I'm a very logical type of person in my brain. Like, most engineering types are. Did I have fears? Yeah, for sure. There was a bit of uncertainty. I think that's normal. I think if there's no fear to do something, then you should probably just not do it, because it's probably too easy. And I'm not talking about like buying a coffee in the morning, like that's a no fear thing. But if you're not feeling that, you have a challenge coming up and that fear is trying to prepare you to take on that challenge and be like, hey, this is not just a wake up and get your coffee kind of moment. This is like, you're going to have to do some work if you want this to pan out.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not there, then I don't think it's worth doing. So certainly there was some. I have an amazing wife that I talked to about this, and we had long discussions about whether or not this was the right move, and she's very supportive. And I have an extreme amount of self-confidence and belief in myself built up over the years, but I gotta say, man, no one believes in me, including me, more than her. And she said, look, if you want to do it and you're passionate about it, I think it's crazy. I think you're leaving behind a dream career to go and do it. But if anyone can pull it off, it's you. And, we kind of made the decision together that like, hey, go for it. Yeah. Did I answer that whole question? I talked about fear, but I'm not sure I got it all.
Emotion. He asked about emotion specifically, but obviously fear is an emotion.
Yeah, there was some. What's funny is when I worked at that foundry I mentioned for 5 years, I didn't love that job. It was an 8 to 5 show up and do the work. I never felt any passion towards it. And when I left that company after 5 years, I remember I cried in the office bathroom. And I think that was the fear. I think I was leaving this comfort. I was leaving my hometown, where I had gone back to after school. I was leaving this job that I didn't even love, but it had some good people in it. And it really hit me there. And it was like a big gut check moment, but I did it. And I went on to the water slide job. When I left that job to the job that I am in right now, I had none of that. I didn't have any sadness. I didn't have any regrets. I wasn't scared, to leave behind something. And I think that speaks to what I touched on earlier, that I was ready to do it, and everything I had learned and achieved there, I was ready, and I knew I was ready. Whereas when I was, 25, I wasn't sure if I was ready for the next thing. And that's, part of the chapters as they build up and they go, and you get used to this idea of change. A really great line, and it was from I'm also like a big athlete, and it's a huge part of my story too, but one of these trainers that I trained with had gave me this line before, and he said, get comfortable being uncomfortable. And that that was like a mind changing, an approach changing line. It was that 5 words. And I was like, man, that's good. Like, that's what it's all about, especially in athletics and training and weight training, which is very synonymous with your career and how you do things in your life. It's like you go to the gym, you got to go every day, and you got to do something that's a little shitty every day to see a result in a year or a year and a half and 2 years. And if you don't believe that everything you do every day, those little chips that you take off the stone, eventually turn into a statue, then you won't do it. And you got to commit and you got to go for it.
Yeah, that's been a huge theme the last few episodes that we've done. And for Corey and I, it's been a big theme of our lives as well. we're starting to, over the last 2 years, at least for me, I've really started to understand that if I want the things in life that I want, I'm going to have to be very uncomfortable or do very uncomfortable things a lot of the time and consistently do it every day. It's not like I'm going to put myself in this uncomfortable situation today and then that's it. It's day after day stacking those wins over and over. And a lot of people don't realize that it does take a tremendous amount of consistency to have success. Like, just you have to keep stacking it over and over and over. And I think people are very short-sighted and very impatient. And they're like, no, I need this success now. And then if they do find success, they're comfortable in it for a very long period of time because it is, like you say, comfortable. And
Yeah.
I think I've said this on the show, Corey, correct me if I'm wrong, but I said that my dad used to quote that comfort is a killer because it makes you really complacent and it kills your hunger. Yeah. Or is this, yeah, complacency. Yeah. It's not great. It's, something that Corey and I have had to kind of overcome because we were both in very comfortable situations too. And we had to kind of get ourselves into an uncomfortable situation. I'm curious. I have a question for you. This is something Corey and I are asking ourselves these days. We've been asking for probably about a year or two now. Corey, you know where I'm going with this. The question is, what exactly do you want for your life? Have you ever asked yourself that question before? What exactly do you want for your life?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's what we're talking about is a I guess a complicated thing, but what I want in my life is not. It's a simple thing. Um, This is a good point. Good time to bring this up. What I say to people, and not all the time, and I'm not running around talking about the day I die, but what I say to people is, I want people, if I die and I pass away, I don't want anyone to ever say at my funeral, I think it would be the most horrible thing ever, that, he always wished he did X, or John always aspired to do Y, or if only he had ever done Z. I just want I try to live and to just enjoy it. If we could go in for hours and hours and hours about what's the higher purpose and why are we all here, and there's a million different iterations to that. I think the fact of the matter is we are here, and we have a choice in everything. It's the only thing we have, actually, in fact, is what I really believe. Like, the only things we really, really own are our bodies and our thoughts. And we have a choice on how we approach things and what we do with the time that we have here. And this isn't like a religious thing at all. Um, what I want for my life is to enjoy it, man, to be able to take in, the ride, and to not have any regrets at the end of it. Um, that's a hard mantra for some people to adopt, but I think it comes down to making that choice. And you said, we had it on our screen, and we read it every day. That type of reinforcement is what it takes to be able to make something like that your reality. And when you do adopt it, and when you do say, like, this is what I want, whatever the case may be, you you bring that message to yourself every day, and you incrementally you start to believe it, and you start to make it happen. And that's the power of your mind. And on your last episode, it was Aaron, that's his name, right? Aaron, the hockey player.
Yeah.
Yep.
Talked about the power of visualization and the power of your mind. That's so huge, because how else would anyone ever expect to get anything done than without their mind, right? And much the same way, like, you could train a dog, like Pavlov's dog, to have a reaction to something. Like, let's not forget that we're mammals too. And if you don't think some part of that's true for humans the same way it is for dogs, then I have unfortunate news for you. You're sadly mistaken. It takes this reinforcement, and this
Yeah.
the thing that we have that's different is this thing called consciousness, where we can choose the thought that we put in there. The dog can't choose. He doesn't ring the bell, but we can ring our own bell over and over every day, and, like, elicit a reaction from ourselves that starts to form into your reality. And you know what I choose to do with that, in my own moment, in my own mind, is to try to enjoy this life, and believe in myself and believe in people. I tell my wife all the time, like, she can be kind of pessimistic about people. She's like, oh, that's why I don't go here, because everyone's an asshole. Well, they might be, but you have to choose to allow them the chance to prove you wrong over and over and over again. because at some point someone will. And I think that's a sort of mentality that I wish more people had, because I wish that people were a little more open to the way other people do things and the way other people see things. Um, when you reinforce in your mind over and over that, that the world's burning and people are assholes and everything's going to shit, well, surprise, surprise, that's how you start to act.
That's really good advice. I actually just heard a quote from Dan Martell. Do you follow Dan Martell at all?
No, I don't.
No.
Come on, second story. But trying to get Dan Martell on the show, he'll never do it. But
Yeah,
Come on, Dan.
his big thing is trading money for time. That's kind of his main mantra. But he had a really good quote the other day. He was doing an interview, and he said, if you had 2 weeks to live and you couldn't tell anyone, what would you do?
Oof.
I thought that was like, it was incredibly inspirational for me, because I was thinking like, yeah, we should be doing that all the time, right? We should be thinking about that in that way all the time. So I'm gonna ask you that. I don't know if you'll be able to answer it. That's a really tough question. But if you
that's
had
a really hard one.
2 weeks left, I'll ask both you guys. If you had 2 weeks left to live and you couldn't tell anyone, what would you do?
Man, yeah, that is a hard question. I mean, I'd spend a lot of time with my mom. I'm lucky, to still have parents around, so for sure spend time with her.
It's good to think about things like that, right? Because maybe
Yeah.
I'm not spending enough time with my mom, maybe, right? So you can
Yeah.
start, maybe I'll call my mom after the show.
Yeah.
You start
Yeah,
thinking
yeah.
about that.
Yeah, please hold. I gotta call her now, actually.
Yeah.
It does
Um,
really. Wow, that's a really. It makes you think about what your real priorities are.
Yeah.
Well, you know
A
what
lot of
though?
people.
I mean, on a longer time scale, yeah, we do all only have 2 weeks to live, right? And I'm not saying we're all dead in 2 weeks, but there's a finite time for sure. So
Right.
2 weeks is a lot to get in. I think if you had a lot of unchecked boxes, there would be a very overwhelming question, right?
For
So I
sure.
think you gotta just check off your boxes as you go.
Mm-hmm.
If you care about something and you believe in it, get it done this year or whatever. Set a goal to achieve it, so at least you're working towards it, because there'd be nothing worse than getting to the end of the 2 weeks or your life and saying like, man, I wish I woulda, whatever it is. Now I'd probably travel too. I think that's one of the things that gives me like the greatest satisfaction in life is traveling and meeting new people and seeing different cultures and just taking in again what life and the world has to offer. It's a lot more than what we see in Eastern Ontario for sure. So that's probably number
Yeah,
two.
fair enough. I don't know how
How
I'd
about
answer
you,
that question.
Josh?
I don't know. I don't know that I would travel. It's tough. I probably would travel somewhere, but I would want to have a lot of people with me that are close
Like
to me.
Cobden?
Maybe that's a little far for me. I don't get out much. Which you're talking like an hour away. The travel thing, I think I would want to travel with a big group of people, like friends, family, that whole thing. But I think I would be for the final 2 weeks, I would be extremely introspective about my life, and I would probably do a lot more listening than talking. Because I wouldn't really want to. I don't think I would want to like tell people my story, because I think once I'm dead, people are going to do it for me, or at least I would hope so. So I'd probably want to hear from people more and maybe listen more. But yeah, be with family, be with friends. I would probably do a lot of this show, to be honest. Like I would go to like, I'd
You
go
got
to
to
all the
give
people that
Corey
I
a
want to
couple
interview.
years worth of runway, eh?
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, I mean, if I only have 14 days, we got to do 2 a day. That's 28. That gives you 1 year of podcast after to find a replacement for
Thanks,
me.
man.
Yeah, give you a bit of runway, like Braz said. Yeah, I would. I don't know, man. That's a tough question, but I would
It is
definitely
tough.
want to like.
I don't think you're supposed to be able to answer it. Like, I think it's
No,
more for you to think about the things that really matter, right? And then try to, as best you can, try to do them.
Imagine
Yeah.
how free you'd be. Like, let's just say I don't know. I always wondered this with my dad because my dad was sick, and they basically said like you have a 15% chance of living more than 3 months. But my dad couldn't move. He was literally confined to a hospital bed. But just imagine for a second that you have 2 weeks left to live, but you're able-bodied. How free
Mhm.
would you be for those 2 weeks? Like, have you ever heard somebody talk about having like a fire or they lose all of their material possessions? Like, I've known a few people who have had house fires and they've lost everything except the clothes on their back. And when you talk to them, they're like, "Oh, dude, it was the most freeing moment of my entire life." Braz, you probably have. You're a fireman sometimes,
I'm a
but they talk about
firefighter
how,
now. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, there you go. So they talk about how freeing it is because they're no longer restricted by material things. And you wonder, like, there's nothing bigger than losing your life. And if you haven't yet lost it, but you're in the midst of losing it, like 2 weeks from now, like, I got to think you'd feel an extreme amount of liberty. Like, I can do anything I want because I'm dead in 14 days. Like, I'll do whatever the hell I want. I mean, within reason, obviously. I mean, I don't know. Maybe you go on a maybe you go nuts, but I doubt it. But just imagine the freedom that you would feel doing that, like the liberty you'd have to like just do the things that you've never done, or maybe that you never would have done. It is a
You
good.
imagine if it was like the asteroid's gonna hit Earth and we knew it was happening in 2 weeks, so you told the whole world they got 2 weeks
Mm.
left to live. I don't think
Oof,
that turns into a nice
that's
place.
No, I
no.
don't think so.
I don't think that's
No.
everyone hanging out with their mom for 2 weeks, you know?
No, no, I don't think so.
That's
Um,
the purge, the purge, but for
yeah,
two
Yeah.
weeks instead of one day. Yeah.
but that question, like, I feel like you leaving your job that you had for years, did you feel some kind of freedom just making that big bold decision to go do that other thing?
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Hmm.
You know, it was very liberating. And it's better now. Um, like it's gotten better over the year because my favorite saying that I say to people, and it's really on point for this, is how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time,
Hmm.
right? There's no other way to do it. So that was a big liberating moment to take it on, and then throughout the year, you know, I just kept taking bites and taking bites, and I believe it's working out. You know, the show's good. We put together a team. We got good production quality. I'm decent on camera. Surprise, surprise. And you know, it just feels even better, and I'm thankful that I did it now. And that's true in my life every time I made a change like this. Like Josh just mentioned, I recently became a firefighter. You know, applied. So in a small town, and for anyone who doesn't know, in rural areas, specifically in Ontario, but I think pretty much across the world, you don't have a fully staffed full-time um, team of firefighters. So there's not someone in the fire station in your little town 24/7 like there are in city centers. So it runs on a volunteer basis. So you have 30 firefighters in the town that are responding. If a call comes in, everyone, you know, they get in their own personal vehicle, in their own truck. You hightail it to the station, you get in the truck and you go. Fully trained like any firefighter would be now in Ottawa, which is incredible. But, you know, applied to do this. And it was one of those other things like I want to keep learning. A lot of other factors went into it for me too, like, you know, again, and I say the word just because it's the best one that everyone relates to, but I feel pretty blessed in my life, not a religious thing, you know, with where I was born and the family and the friends that I had and the opportunities I was given growing up, and well, certainly the way that I chose to tackle them, which is what we're talking about today. But I thought that I had like a surplus and I had something to give from that, and it was really about getting involved in the community and using, you know, the skills and the traits that I have to help someone else. So I decided to get in there and volunteer and learn, and it's been amazing, you know, which is another lifelong learning thing. Anyone who's I've ever talked to that became it said it was the best decision they ever made. So that came along in parallel with the career shift. It was happening literally at the exact same time. I was in training for fire, and then switching jobs. My wife thought I was nuts. She's like, "What are you doing? Like you're basically back in school for 8 months to become a firefighter, and now you just change jobs." And I do a lot of woodworking stuff on the side. So it's all at once, man. I was just taking on the world all at once.
Braz is the only person who has more jobs than I do. That I
Yeah.
know. That I know of.
Yeah, but every one of them at some point was like you enter into it with no idea how to achieve the thing, but you've learned that you can take these steps and take these bites, and eventually you will know how to do the thing, and you can make it, part of your repertoire, part of your experience, and another piece that fits in and gives you some insight into the next thing that you're going to do. And that's the goal. So, what's next now? Keep going, take on something new.
Did you ever have a moment in your previous job? So you mentioned you were 5 years with one company or 13 years with another one. Did you have a moment at all where you felt like you're in this job and you're like, I have not reached my potential?
I had moments in that job where I felt I wasn't recognized for where I had reached and for what my potential was. Um, but no, I wouldn't say. I think when at the time that I left, I knew that I did not want to get promoted again.
Mm.
And I mean that's one way to measure potential, right? But I knew that where I was where I was going to end whenever that chance was. I'm not one for managing people, not on a day to day. You talk about leaders and bosses. I'm not a boss. I can be a great leader if I'm in something that I'm passionate about and that I care about, and I have a lot to share on the subject with people. But I never wanted to be a boss, and that was the next step, really, which I think was when I look back at it. If I ever end up being someone who's running a company and I have a me, designing the slides, and I say to a me that the only way for you to make more money and advance your career is to stop doing what you're doing right now and go and manage people and do something totally different, then I'm just going to close up shop and you know dissolve that company right away, because I probably would still be there if I hadn't realistically if I hadn't been forced to be promoted, which is this really weird thing to say. But if I
Yeah, we
hadn't
can
been
talk
forced
about
into a
that.
promotion and out of the role that I loved and that I was the best in the world at, then I probably would still be there. Which, thank God, actually. I'm really happy that I did do that and took that promotion and made the most of it while I was in the role, but it wasn't what I was passionate about. And
Yeah.
It's not that weird, eh, Josh? Like they force promotions all the time. You can love your job, but they're always like, "What do you want next from here? What do you want next from here?"
All the time. Every corporate interest, that's what they do.
yeah, I don't
They
get it.
they push it on. I don't get it. I just had it happen to me not that long ago where it was pushed on me. I was like, no, 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 no. I like doing the thing. I'll keep doing
Yeah.
the thing. They're like, no, no, we want you to do this other thing for more money. I was like, nah, I'm good. Thank you. Like,
Yeah.
thanks, but no
Yeah, it's funny,
thanks.
eh? It's like, hey, man, you're really good at this thing. You
Mhm.
should do something totally different for us.
Yeah.
That would be a good move. Like, come on.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Just pay people more money to keep doing the thing that they're good at. I don't know. I mean, a lot of it's about money, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Ultimately, pretty much not everything is about money, but it's usually about money or power. That's those are the dynamics of business and corporations and things like that, which sucks. The reason I asked you that question about your potential is I was thinking more like outside of your own role. Like obviously you reached the potential in the job, but outside of the job, did you feel like there were other things that you had the potential to do, like what you're doing right now, where you're like, I'm really holding myself back from chasing that thing. This is something I deal with. That's why I'm asking is I look at my life and I'm like, I have the potential to get there. I really should go after that. And
Hmm.
up until like really 3 years ago, I just never did. I was like, that was a thing I could chase when I'm like in my late 40s. My kids are bigger. But now I'm just like, I should be doing it for them. Like my kids are young. And if I do those things, I can provide them a better life. I really should do them now. And so I've felt for so long like I just had all this unrealized potential, and now I'm starting to fulfill it. So I'm wondering for you if you had that feeling.
No, I didn't really, which I think is it's a funny thing to say, but it's a fortunate thing to be able to say. There was unrealized earning potential that I thought I had or should have.
Hmm.
Um, but no, man, I think that harkens back to what I said about setting your goals and what they really are, and mine is predominantly to enjoy the time I have here, and do some good, and leave the world a better place than when I came into it. And I I feel that every day, and I'm generally satisfied with life. And I think that's, was reflective of my answer there, that I didn't feel like there was somewhere that I wasn't getting that I should have got to. I mean, it was a cool ass job too, right? Like, I got to travel all around the world to the most beautiful places, and meet awesome people. So it definitely didn't leave me wanting for something as a career choice, or what I spent my 9 to 5 doing every day.
Yeah, I think that's easy to get sucked into for a lot of people. Maybe like for you, because you do have a lot of internal belief, and you are somebody who can self-start. You might not have felt that way. I'm not by definition a self-starter. Like, I really have to push myself or be pushed to do things. Usually it's circumstance that pushes me.
Yeah.
Um, but I know for me, like, I look back on my own life, and I'm just like, I self-sabotaged myself out of so many things that I could have done. And then I looked around at people I know who did the same thing. And there are so many people that I know that have just self-sabotaged themselves out of a much better life. They just have so much self-doubt. They don't think they can do the thing. They don't want to even try to
Mhm.
do the thing because they're worried about failure. Obviously, for you, you put yourself on the biggest platform in the world, have no broadcasting experience whatsoever, and you're like, yeah, I'm just gonna try it out. Just see. I remember you messaged me after you had started doing it, and I had no idea you were doing it because you kept it pretty quiet from most people. And I was like, Jesus Christ, he's never done this thing before. Holy shit. Like, he's going for it. And I thought it was
Yeah.
awesome. I was like, man, I wish I had the balls to do that kind of thing. But you're right. You are good on screen. I know you asked me, you're like, oh, what could I be better at? And that's something that comes with self-belief too. You're like, I know I have areas to improve. What are they? And you messaged me, you're like, what could I do better in these interviews? And I told you to watch George Stroumboulopoulos. I'm like, watch this guy. He's the best
Yeah.
at it. But I go back to the self-sabotage thing. Obviously, that's not something that you've dealt with. But Corey, you, on the other hand, I mean, I know the answer to this, but we'll ask it of you anyways. Have you self-sabotaged in the past in your
Oh
career?
yeah. Yeah, many times. Still do.
Yeah.
I do. Honestly, like I can admit that. Like uh for sure, like the potential that I have is pretty substantial. I have a skill set that is perfect for our current world, but I keep it pretty local. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm trying to get myself into mindsets like Braz is talking about, just and like you were talking about, being able to self start versus letting a circumstance start you up. Because I've
What,
Yeah.
had circumstances make me make moves for sure.
Yeah.
Corey, what's your roadblock? What stops you from realizing that potential that you have with your skill set?
I think a lot of it is anytime I think too big, I almost talk myself out of it. I don't know
Right.
what that. I don't know what causes that or why I do that, but yeah, I do. I as soon as I go, yeah, I could take this next leap, I almost backpedal out of it like instantly. Like, it's not even like a weeks long process or something. It's like, oh, I've got this great idea, and then I
Yeah.
just like go, maybe I'll just back out of that right now.
So you stuck on the elephant, and you're like, man, I can't swallow that.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
just like, I don't want to eat a fucking elephant, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
truth is, it probably tastes great. It's probably, the best steak you've ever had.
Elephant meat. Yeah, sure. Maybe.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe it's tough though.
Yeah,
Here's
who
a
knows?
here's a question I'll put to both of you. I'll put it to you first, Corey, because we're talking to you. Who do you want designing your life, you or the rest of the world?
Well, do I need to answer that? Obviously, I'd like me to be designing it.
And Braz, you?
100% me. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I'll
Yeah.
ask you this. Do you think most people, not all, but most people in the world want to design their own life, or do you think you want someone to design life for them?
I think most people in the world don't design their own lives, but probably haven't like consciously acknowledged that,
Hmm.
right? Because you have to break from the norm to
Yeah.
really design your own life. If you're working 9 to 5 and you got a Honda Civic and you got a house and you make your mortgage payments and you sit in an office, like that's you didn't design that.
No.
You're just in it and you're along for the ride. And I think you have to take control if you want to be the architect of your own life and your own destiny. And I think that's probably, really alludes to like the number one point that I would love to make or love anyone to take from this is like make the choice. That's all you can do. That's all you can do is make the choice and then reinforce it and go and make it happen. If you see something you love or that you want to do, make the choice and commit. And that's across the board. That's, what do you want to do for your career? How do you want to be as a person? What achievements do you want to gain? What reality do you want to like wish into existence? Like you have to choose and you have to believe in that and you have to fail because you're not gonna get it
Hmm.
on the first shot. You have to fail, and then you have to have the conviction to say, okay, what did I do wrong? Let's go back, stroke it out, try again, but keep the goal the same.
Yeah. So that in my own life, I don't think I came to that realization until I was like 36 years old, sitting in a hospital bed, being like, man, I let so much of life just happen to me rather than like making it happen for myself. And that was a real moment of like introspection where I knew then I'm like, as soon as I get out of this hospital bed, I'm changing that about myself. Like I'm going to dictate the terms of my life. I'm not going to let them be dictated to me. Obviously,
Yeah.
you can't do that 100%, but you could try to control as much of it as you can. But really, what I realized there, and I'm sure you probably had this realization at some point in your life, is that like the life you want doesn't just happen. You don't get a job by sitting on the couch. You don't, do something amazing that no one else has done unless you do something amazing that no one else has done. And I think people see easy money or fast money or like success and they go, I want that. And then they just go back to doing the thing that won't get them there, like going and watching TV or, playing video games. And not that there's anything wrong with watching TV or video games, but those things are essentially wastes of time. You're not really going to accomplish anything by watching a
Yeah.
movie or, playing Grand Theft Auto. That's how dated my game references are. But anyways, I think we are living in a weird time though, where a lot of people are changing. Like a couple months ago, I had no idea that you were sort of going through this whole thing, and I was going through it too. But I think that's kind of just men. Like we do these things in silence a lot of the time, and then all of a sudden you see somebody's success, and you just think, "Oh, how'd they do that?" You didn't see the whole lead up to the whole thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. How did that just happen to him and it doesn't happen to me?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I felt when I saw you do your thing. I was like, "Oh shit, how do you do it?" Oh, right, he probably put like years of work into getting there into that spot. And yeah, nobody saw the climb. They just saw you at the top of the mountain, like you say.
Yeah. Yeah. It goes all the way back for me. And for me it was athletics way back in the day. Like I was not a this person, if anyone knew me when I was 10 or 12, would not have said that this would be the type of person that I ended up being, sitting here talking to people about how to, motivate themselves and with the confidence that you can do it or that I can even do it. I was an awkward kid. I was shy. And it was like two left feet and 10 thumbs in terms of athletics. And somewhere around grade 9 or grade 10, I said to myself, like, this is something I want. Like, I want to be an athlete, whether it was for whatever reason, whatever motivation, whether it's, I was watching the Olympics or something. I didn't have those aspirations to be an Olympian or anything, but I wanted to be a good athlete. And I remember at our high school going in at lunch, and playing pickup basketball and volleyball with the guys, the kids who were good athletes. And I was brutal, man. Like I was getting beat. I was getting not dunked on because we weren't that tall, or no one was really that athletic in our
Layupped
school.
on.
I was
Yeah.
getting
Layupped
layupped
on.
on everywhere, getting crossed over, falling like for years, man. Grade
Yeah.
9, grade 10, grade 11, but I kept going back every single day, and just believing that surely at some point I have to get better at this. And then it started clicking in grade 11, grade 12, OAC, if any of our listeners even remember what that is. I was like grade 13. We used to have it. And I became, a very good athlete. It helps that I was 6'4", and I can't really change that, but I became a really good athlete and strong, and we ended up winning the Ontario Championship for volleyball. I was a starter on that team, and that was a lot of work too. We practiced every day at 6 a.m. for 2 hours, and that's where this belief really came from for me. That was like my origin story for my current personality. Was I sucked. I spent the time, I put in the work, I believed, and it eventually came to be. And I think that's true for anyone. I don't think you have to be 6'4" to be a good athlete. And then sure enough, like grade 12 OAC, I was like the only guy in the county who could dunk a ball. And I was actually dunking on other people, you know?
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's continued. Athletics has continued. I played very high level volleyball for a long time, got into powerlifting and weightlifting, and I have a gym in my garage, and it's still part of my process and like part of my therapy and my growth. I still have goals in there that I go out and I chip away at every day.
Nice. It's amazing for a white guy.
Yeah. I don't think I can do it anymore. This 40-year-old knees.
Shaq could barely dunk when he was 40.
I'm just curious, Braz, what your definition of success is.
I think overall definition of success is like, are you satisfied with your own accomplishments and where you are? I don't think there's not one thing that across the board that defines success. I don't know if you guys saw, but I follow SpaceX and Elon and everything that those guys are doing. And success for Elon just means that he just caught the largest flying object, a gigantic rocket, launched a ship up to space, and came back and caught it with two little metal arms on a tower, which is like unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
So that's his definition of maybe success today, but I'm sure it isn't, right? Because he has bigger and larger aspirations. If that's how I say, like, it can't be the same for everyone across the board. I'm never catching any fucking rockets that come out of space, with a Mechazilla robot. That can't be my definition of success. But my version, my Mechazilla is something different, just like yours is, Josh, and yours is, Corey. And I think if you can be satisfied with where you are and what you've done, and at the same time not be done, then I think you're successful. I think when you're done, I don't believe that you will continue to do anything that's considered success if you think that you're done.
Nice.
Just like Elon's not done. I mean, an unbelievable, arguably one of the largest accomplishments ever in the history of spaceflight, and it's like step 2 of 10 for him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think what's crazy about Elon Musk too is like he's trying to land these rockets and they just keep exploding. And his solution is, why don't we just catch it? Right? Like,
Yeah.
like let's
Yeah.
just catch it. Like his solutions
So
are always
crazy.
so like they're incredibly complicated to do, but it's always such a simple solution to his problem. Just catch the
Yeah.
rocket.
The way
Right?
he talks is so unbelievably different from the way I've ever heard anyone talk. It's almost robotic, but when he talks about, we're going to launch this Starship thing and we're going to go to Mars. The way I heard him in an interview walk through it, he's like, if we want to go to Mars and have a fully sustainable city or civilization on Mars, then we're going to need, X amount of pounds or kilograms worth of goods that are going to need to get there. And they're going to need to get there within 6 months. And the journey is whatever, 6 months. And the trip for humans is going to take this long. So we need to get all this cargo there in this time frame. That means we're going to need to launch these rockets 2 a day. In order to launch the rockets 2 a day, I need to have production to be able to build 18 engines a day. And it literally goes down to like nuts and bolts. So he has like the big goal, but the way his brain works is like so down to every nut and bolt that goes into it. And the fact that he can like keep it all straight and articulate it and then go out and act on it while running these massive corporations at the same time. I think it's just, whether you like him or not, you can't deny that he's a bit of a phenomenal human in his thinking and the way he does things.
For the difference between like him and most of the world is that he has eyes on him to watch him fail, whereas like most of us, nobody cares. Like nobody cares if Corey and I fail. No one's watching us. The only thing people will ever care about is if we succeed. And they'll be like, oh shit, look at Corey and Josh. They succeeded. But they're not going to see the hundreds of failures that we're going to have. And for him, everybody is. Everybody's watching him. And they're like, oh, what a stupid thing. And they criticize him. And I get it in a way, but I'm also like, the guy's doing shit that no one else has ever done. So obviously there's a brilliance to it.
It's funny when the media and the outlets, like when they criticize that, it's just like you say, like, because it's not without the successes that anyone would be talking about the failures. But I personally believe that every failure he's ever had would be a monumental achievement for any other normal person. Like, you didn't land your rocket and it blew up. Well, yeah, but you fucking launched it.
Yeah,
you built it. You know.
That is true. We society has this weird allergy to failure. Like I'm actually, I wouldn't say I'm addicted to failure, but like I'm addicted to the lessons that come from failure. So when I screw up and make a mistake, I'm like peeling the onion to get to what's the lesson here? What's the thing I'm going to learn and take away and not do the next time? So in a roundabout way, I am addicted to failure because I'm, again, addicted to the lesson. But for most people, they're so afraid to fail. I see this with my daughter. She's like so afraid to fail. I'm like, baby, now's the time. Go out and mess up, make mistakes. Like you're going to learn from them and be a better person for it. But yeah, people always laugh at failure. And I'm always like, you don't get it. You don't get the lesson in all this. And most people don't. Most people are scared to fail.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a bit scary, right? But I think it's just because no one wants egg on their face. You know, there's one thing you get from failure and is learning a lesson. One positive thing, but way more negative. But the lesson's worth more than all the negative.
Yeah.
Right? It's like quality versus quantity thing.
Yeah, for sure. I think people are also afraid of all those people that have been naysayers and saying you're going to fail, you're going to fail. Like they're afraid that they're going to prove them right. You know what I mean? But truth is, those people, they're not there for you anyways, right? Like they're not going to be there for you when you fail. They might be there when you succeed and try to take some from you, but they're gonna prove you right with, see, I told you were gonna fail up until you succeed. So I don't know. I think people just fear that.
Yeah.
I have a question for you guys. Like, I think we can all agree that failure is a precursor for success.
For
sure. Josh, you know, as you keep evolving through your career, we know we've all had failures. But do you think that, I mean, at some point, ideally, if you're going to walk through any of this, you know, you'd want to have some success. So failure being a precursor for success. Do you think success is a precursor for continued growth and more success?
Well, that's a good question.
Or is that just like, do you need to just set goals where you can have a win along the way en route to the big win?
So that's how Corey and I have kind of operated in this whole thing that we're doing, is we've had these little wins along the way, but we just treat them as like, okay, we reached this goal, let's go to the next one. I think for most people, success is probably a precursor for more success, because I think a lot of us are wired, like you said earlier, to be negative. So if we fail at something over and over, we're like, oh, screw it. I'm just like people who go to school and aren't successful and they're like, screw it, I'll just quit. And I mean, I did that. I quit after my first year of college. I just moved on. And that was ultimately a failure. But I took a lot of lessons from that. But I think a lot of people fail and just go, I won't do that again. and then they just kind of
Yeah.
take their ball and go home. It's like the kid playing basketball that sucks. You, for example, didn't do that. You kept just getting laid up on, as you put it. But I think a lot of kids would have just taken their ball and gone home, especially teenagers and like young adults. But I think having success is a great thing to sort of give you a taste and give you sort of an internal desire to have more success. I don't think you necessarily need to have it, but I think a lot of people, if they do sort of spot bumps in the road or failures, they will pack it in and just, no, I'm done. That's it. So to answer, I guess that's kind of a roundabout way to answer your question. That was a politician's answer. I didn't really answer it.
No, I think he answered it. Corey, what do you think?
I think successes along the road can be motivators to continue going, right? Like it's kind of milestones, like you said, points in the road that you're trying to get to. I sometimes have this is probably another little thing that I need to rewire in my brain. I have a little bit of trouble with success. Like when I hit, well, sometimes when I hit like something that's done well, I just like move past it. I'm just like, all right, that happened, move on. Like I don't actually enjoy that moment. I think that's something that I need to like start doing, looking back and going, yeah, I did that well. Let's try to repeat it or add on to it and continue.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people probably do that as well.
Yeah.
But
a lot of people set the target of like, oh, if I just do this thing, I'll find happiness. If I just buy this house and live in this house, I'll be happy. Then they get in there, and after a year, they're like, boy, the neighbors have a really nice house down the street. If I just had that, I think a lot of people treat the world that way.
Yeah. And I think like you said, being happy with what you're doing is probably more important. Like being, to me, success would be enjoying the process, right? As opposed to like hitting these certain goals along the way. But
yeah, if you like what you do, that you enjoy the process, then any goals that you reach are just like bonuses to me. Like if you actually enjoy, like we enjoy this show, and if we find any success out of it, that's a bonus to us. We'd like success, but we enjoy the process, and not everything's like that. And jobs in particular are not like that at all. Most people go to job to just get the paycheck. And I always say a job is a drug. I don't know if you've seen me say that on the show, but I always say like a job is a drug, and the thing that gets you hooked is the paycheck. So every 2 weeks, the fiends need that paycheck. They're like, hook it to my veins. There we go. Oh, good. I'm good for another 2 weeks. But yeah. What about you? What do you think?
Well, I asked because, as we were chatting, I got to thinking about it, and, we were talking about the athletics, and had I not ended up becoming a good athlete, would that have been a precursor for where I am now? And I was just curious how you guys felt on it, because I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the answer is, but that success certainly was a reinforcement and a precursor for me. But I also kind of believe at the same time, if I would not have had it, and would not have felt that I became good in that field, and I'd probably still be trying.
Yeah.
So, which is better? I don't know.
I think the irony of it is, at the time you were like, I want to be an athlete, but you didn't know that being an athlete would be a precursor to other successes, right? So I feel like we almost have to look at the things we're doing now and try to look forward and go, okay, me doing this now and learning this now and getting successful now is going to lead to something else that's even better, right?
Yeah.
So
I think I actually have the answer, and it's something that happened with you and I, Braz, years and years ago, like 15 plus years ago.
Oh,
so
damn.
I've talked on the show about the monumental failure that was me moving to Vancouver to go work in the film industry. It turned into a disaster, led to some mild homelessness and some other things. We won't get into those. But I came home, and I remember coming home the next day, the first day I was back, the first person who actually came to my parents' house, because I was staying in their basement. I was unemployed and had all kinds of problems. The first person who came to see me was you. I don't know. You probably don't remember this because it was just a random Friday. but you came to my house and I was like super down in the dumps. You're like, let's go out, let's get some beers, like go hang out. So we went
As we
out.
did.
Yeah, and we went to, it was our thing. We went to our friend's parents' house, hung out for a little bit, had some beers, went back to my parents, and we were talking. And the thing that you said to me that I'll always remember it because it was like something that kind of pulled me out of it. I was like, oh yeah, I gotta, move on basically, because I could have dwelled on that for a long time, probably a lot longer than I did. But you said it's just a stepping stone. Like it's just that's all it was. It's a bump in the road. Like move on. You'll learn from it, and you'll go to the next thing. And I remember just being like, right, like it's not the end of the world. I'm 23 years old. Like it's not the end of my life.
Yeah.
But I felt when I got on the plane and left Vancouver, like it was the end of my life. And I was just
Yeah.
like I'm moving back to my parents. I have no job. I have no money. But you're just like, yeah, it's a bump in the road. That's it. And you were so like calm and casual about it. And part of me wanted to fight that. I was like, well, fuck him. Like he doesn't know what I'm going through. But the other part of me was like, he's right. Like it is just that. It's not the end of the world. It's not like I got $300,000 in debt and lost my house or something like that. Like just had to move back with my parents, had to get a job, had to move on.
Yeah, an
And I was
option.
able to
Yeah.
do all those things. Yeah. But like, I didn't have a lot of friends in my life at the time that would have said that. Most of them would have called me probably a slur or something, like most likely, or called me a name or called me like being a baby or whatever. But yeah,
Or
you
being
were
a
there and
bitch.
you just, yeah, exactly. And you said the right thing to me, and I was able to sort of regroup and like move on from it a lot quicker than I think I would have. But so to go back to your question of like, is success a precursor to more success? I don't know if it necessarily is, but I think you need to have people in your corner who have a success mindset, who do
Yeah.
have the mindset of like, no, you can be a success, and they can kind of cheerlead for you and just sort of pick you up and just be, maybe a little bit ahead of you in life, almost like a mentor, but not exactly a mentor, but just somebody who's a little bit ahead of you that you can sort of lean on, ask for advice, things like that. And for me, like back then, it was you, like the fact that you showed up and you were the person who
I
said
never
those
knew
things
that,
to me.
man.
Yeah. Well, we
Well,
drove around drinking beers, hacking butts, but you said one insightful thing that day out of like 12 hours that we hung out.
we're
That's
still
really
waiting
cool.
for the next one.
Yeah. Dude, I remember the date of that, believe it or not. That's how it was, February 6th, 2009. It was a Friday.
No
I remember the
way.
date of it. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Wow. Hey,
Yeah.
that's funny because wow, I was still in the job that I didn't really love back then. So I have
Yeah,
a
you were
I
at
have
his.
a yeah, I have an unfortunately like a not great memory for things like that, which is so funny with our group of friends because like a lot of you guys have these insane memories, like quote movies all day long. And if I had to say to myself, like, go back in your mind and think about something that happened in 2008, and my mind doesn't work like that. Like it's not a filing cabinet I can open up and go look for something. It's more like triggered sort of
Yeah.
recollection. It's probably the Alzheimer's that I'm going to get eventually. So that's happening. That's actually another huge motivator for me too. And that this is a little bit darker and a little bit deeper, but I think it alludes to like if you had 2 weeks left to live, what would you do? It kind of goes back to that. Like it's in my family. I may or may not have it. One side of my lineage has it. One side lives to be 100 and they're sharp as a whip. So it's like a dice roll. But when my dad was diagnosed and I started to think about that was a major shifting point too. And I said like, and if that's going to happen to me, like if I have a glimpse here of like my own mortality, what do I want to do with the time that I have? And that was a major driver to try and avoid that. I forget where I was going with this, but yeah, well, I'm super happy, man, that I had that impact on you because I was probably in a place where I hadn't taken too many steps myself. So that was pretty, I think, probably pretty early insight into what kind of mindset I was developing, and certainly an inspiration for the one that you've taken on since then. And amazing to see you back in film, and after all that time into film and into production that you came back to it as your passion, and you're enjoying it and having success in it now.
Yeah, and hopefully more of it to come for sure. Yeah, it's funny how life comes full circle, You end up back in a
Yeah.
place you never thought you'd go back to, and it happens. And just to speak on the thing with your father, a big motivating factor for me was also my father, which I've talked about on this show quite a bit. Um, you do think about your own mortality and like, where am I going and what amount of time do I have left? Like, my dad was 12 years older than me currently when he died. So I'm like, damn, if I only got 12 years left, that's not a lot of time. And there's a lot I'd like to do. And, you push towards all of it. So I think that's something
Yeah.
men probably think about a ton nowadays, at least men that are pushing 40 or in their 40s. It comes up an awful lot. We'll talk a little bit about your show and then we'll get out of here.
Okay.
We'll let you plug it. I promise we'll let you plug it at the end, and we'll throw up some links to it as well. But can you just talk about going into the show? Obviously, I mentioned you had never done broadcasting before in your life. It was not something you were really familiar with. What is it like to take a chance like that and to go into something that a lot of people are going to see that you've never done? And you're like, damn, like if I fail at this, it's going to be kind of a wild disaster for people to watch unfold.
A lot of the confidence that I had going into it was I'm not shy to talk in front of people. And being on camera is a different thing, and there's so much that goes into it. But throughout my career, I got pretty good at running meetings and hosting meetings, and specifically in a technical role. Um, I found I was really good at explaining technical things to non-technical people. Putting it into terms that everyone can understand, relatable language, etc. So I believed that I would be okay with that. And the way we kind of set up the show was such that I didn't have to be an expert in mining. It's about the journey, right? That I'm learning as we go. So I think, the less I knew about it, the better. And I just had to rely on the fact that I would do a good job asking questions. Because also, customers are paying for this. So it can't be shitty. But failure wasn't an option for me for a lot of reasons. And a lot of people, that talk about what we're talking about now and your motivation, and will say the same thing, that failure was not an option. Of course it is, right? Of course it can fail. But then the next one would be the one that didn't fail, or the one after it. And that was sort of the mentality, is that like, I may not be good at it, but I will be eventually.
Mm-hmm.
Failure's not an option. Like, we're going for it. We're going to do it. Yeah, it's just, I think it was just a buildup of everything we've talked about today, where I said, I've never done it, but I've done a lot of things that I've never done before. I just went through school, and I just ran into like a burning building with a fire hose, and tried to put out a fire. And I set goals in the gym. We were just talking about funny being fit in 40. I set goals that I would be the fittest and or strongest I've ever been in my life in my 40s, and chip away and achieve those. And to me, it was another one of those, like, this is going to happen. I'm going to make it work. Then add on top of that our friend Denis, that he took a chance on me, and he said, much like, the chat that you and I had back in 2009, or whatever the date was, February 6th, 2009, that he believed in me, and he gave me inspiration. He's like, you're going to be great at this. I believe in you. You're going to do it. That, to me, added on top of that like, now I can't let him down, was just like, I will do everything in my power possible to make sure that this thing works. And then we went and did it. And it's led into so many more things than being on camera. Like, I've got into production and helping along in that process. Like, I do the animations for the show as well, and learning that. And I didn't start there from scratch. Like, I've been a 3D designer for 18 years, and a lot of the principles are very similar, but it's a totally different thing. Like, Adobe's like its own language, compared to some of the stuff I've worked with before, and the programs which are built on like precision. This must be 2.022 whatever inches, and the whole assembly has to go together. That's like precision, not art. So transitioning into like an art space is a big shift. But
if you were to give advice to someone who's feeling stuck in their job and wants to make a big, bold change, what kind of advice would you give them?
Well, first of all, do it. Not today. You don't have to do it today, but start working your way towards doing it. It's going to be uncomfortable. Um, you're going to have setbacks, but if you really, really believe it, like don't eternally put it off making the change. Like just start to make the change and embrace that mentality that you need to have that will serve you well long after you make the career change that you need to make, is like adopt the mentality of change and of growth, and stay open and learn, set yourself some goal, and start taking a bite every day. That's it might take a while. You might be in the job for another year, but you'll feel a lot better about it if you're working towards a goal that will get you out of it and get you into something else. It'll be bearable.
Braz, what are people going to take away from this episode of Second Story?
Maybe nothing. I don't know.
Oh shit! I hope not.
I think that's exactly it. Is the answer to the last question, I think, is what I hope they take away is the same answer, that change is uncomfortable. You got to get used to that, but it's possible, and you can. I feel so cliche right now, but if you want it, then take the steps to go and get it, and you'll get there, or you won't, but you'll be better prepared for where you end up going, right? If I said I wanted to catch rockets with a Mechazilla arm, I may not get there, but I may end up being extremely good at designing one piece of that system, or the process that goes into product development and R&D. If you start taking the steps towards your goal, you might decide that that's not where you want to go ultimately, but you're still a few clicks further down the road, and you can make a left or make a right, but just keep moving forward.
I told you this like 2 weeks ago when we were out for wings. One of the things that's sort of blown Corey and I away about doing this show is that we just thought we would do a podcast and maybe get to network a little bit, meet some cool people along the way, maybe people we probably shouldn't be talking to. But the wildest thing about hosting this show is all of the doors that it's opened outside of the actual podcast, like just opportunities to get into other businesses, talk with other businesses, talk with people we have no business talking to, have employment opportunities, freelance opportunities, business opportunities. We did not expect that, a year and a few months ago when we started doing this thing. We're like, we'll do a podcast. It'll be fun. Talk to people we shouldn't talk to. And then all these doors just swung open, and we're like baffled by it, really caught off guard because we're not prepared for it. But to your point about like taking the chance and like building up to taking the chance, Corey and I waited 2 years to start this podcast, where we just sort of, I don't know what we really did. I have a hard time remembering, but we just didn't start it. And I'm like, I look back and I go, God damn it. Like if we just 2 years early, like where would we be today if we'd been doing this 3 years? I don't know. I don't know if it would have ended up good or bad, but don't drag your feet. Like you say, just plan to take the risk and do your thing.
Yeah. No, I love that.
I think I think you're going to also find this in your newer career, Braz, is as you meet new people too, you're going to take these little bits of advice and these little motivators from all of them. You're going to be like, wow, they went from there to there. I can do that. Right. And you start actually utilizing those things in your own life. Me and Josh have definitely taken from a lot of our guests. You're going to be one of them that I'm going to be taking some advice from, and just, using those pieces for your own benefit. Right. So it's almost like a fast track to that success.
Yeah, we talk
cool.
about, with expeditions, like, hey, wouldn't it be awesome if like we get picked up by like Discovery someday? And like low key, I put that in my head. It was like, okay, then
Hell yeah.
we're making a show that's good enough for that. Do I honestly expect to see myself on Discovery someday? Yeah, probably not. But like that's the goal. That's the goal as of right now. It's kind of silly. It's a bit of a soft goal, but the more and more we continue, I'm kind of like, well, maybe maybe we'll take a shot at it. Worst they could say is no. Still got a good product. So
yeah, and you don't know where that's going. Corey and I have a soft goal like that too, to go to, but you just don't know what things, like what sort of off ramps are going to be along the highway that you're on, like the journey that you're on. We had no idea any of the off ramps, but so
Yeah.
good for you, man. I'm really proud of you. Proud to, have been able to talk to you about it as you were kind of rising up. And I think you're putting out a really good product. And to me, I look at it and it's only going to get better.
Yeah. Well, thanks very much, man. I really appreciate that. And,
Now you can plug.
For anyone that hasn't picked it up yet, our show's called EarthLabs Expeditions. We're on YouTube at earthlabs.expeditions. Come and check it out. We're touring around the world. We're meeting with mining and exploration companies, a super necessary industry, a fun industry full of great people and great players. A huge part of electrification and the world meeting its net zero goals. But we're making it fun. We're going around, so come along with us. Join me on the next one. We have 3 episodes out already, more to come, and come learn all about mining with me.
Yeah, awesome, dude. We'll put
Thanks,
the links
Braz.
in the episode description. Thanks a lot for doing the show, Braz. Really appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, guys.
people.
It was a lot of fun.
Thanks, man.